Hey guys, it's Bridget with Sandy with Seed Company, and we're here on the farm. Today I'm going to talk about gardening in a heat wave, or really just gardening when it's hot. It is beautiful today. It's 75 degrees. It's been gorgeous on the farm for the last couple weeks, but it's coming. We can feel it. Every day it's getting a little bit warmer, a little bit earlier in the day, and we know come mid-June, it's going to be average high 80s out here and then spiking into the high 90s on certain days. And then if we have a hot summer, it could be well over that for most of July and August. It always kind of depends, but it's hot. It's really hot here. And for a lot of you gardening in zone 9 and 10, and really across the United States, summers are getting hotter. Now, I've always gardened in a very hot climate. The beginning of my gardening and farming journey was in Southern California, and so I've learned a lot of tricks along the way. If you're in Washington, but you got a couple weeks of heat coming, what can you do to keep your garden happy and thriving? We'll get to that in this video. But before I get to that, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button so I can help you garden the best in zone 9 and 10. The number one thing I'm gonna say for anybody gardening anywhere, but especially in areas that get really, really hot, is make sure you keep on hand shade cloth. I've said it once, I've said it twice, I've said it a million times. Shade cloth is incredible. And the reason why this is number one over other things like soil health and mulch and watering methods and everything else is this is the quickest and easiest way you can help your garden in a heat wave. Other things take a lot of time and energy. I will talk about good soil health, I'll talk about mulch, but you can't do that in one afternoon. That takes years to have really good soil. You have to bring in truckloads of mulch and spread it, and you need to spread it before the heat wave, ideally like the season before. This is something where you literally can go, oh my God, next week is supposed to be 100 degrees, and I don't think my plants are going to be happy. You can run out and get shade cloth. Now, I have a million videos on shade cloth and what it is, but just for those of you who are tuning in the first time, this is not awning cloth. That's a very important distinction. A lot of times when you go to big box stores or even some nurseries, they're going to sell awning cloth. This is shade cloth. This is 40% shade cloth. I really don't recommend anything over 50%. And when I mean 50 or 40%, it's the amount of UV light that this blocks out. It's basically how thick knitted is this fabric. Now, a common misperception is that shade cloth blocks out the hours of sunlight. That's not true. If we're getting 12 hours of sun during the day, you put up the shade cloth, your plants are still going to get 12 hours of sun, but the intensity of that UV light is going to be decreased by whatever that percentage is. In this case, 40%. 40% is my go-to because you can use it across the farm or the garden on flowers, on vegetables, and it's not going to block out so much UV light that it's going to stunt your plants. We actually are going to put it on our snapdragons here. These are plants that don't really love the extreme heat, so we're actually going to put it up over these stakes, and we'll go through and we'll shade it this way. The reason why this is number one is because it literally takes 3 seconds. If you're in a pinch, like let's say, for example, I'm just gonna pull this. You go outside and you're like, oh my gosh, my carrots, well there's carrots there. My peppers are frying and it's supposed to be super hot and they're wilting and I can't water them enough. You literally can just be like, well, I gotta go to work, bye. And you can run and you can do that really quickly. Now, do I recommend leaving it on there like that all day? No, I don't, but it's not gonna hurt. It is a very lightweight fabric. And unless your peppers are really spindly and unhealthy, it's not gonna break them. You'll notice, yes, they're squishing it a little bit, but the benefit far outweighs the issue of having this sitting on the crop. That's a common question I get. People say, do I need to hoop this? Do I need to put it up? However, ideally it would be up off the plant, but if you're in a hurry, you can literally just lay it down and then when you get home from work, you can take it off. Okay, so number two, for my pro tips on how to garden in a heat wave or any hot climate, or even just good habits for summertime gardening, is mulch. So we joke that it's like my favorite word because I do talk about mulch all the time. Mulch, 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 mulch. It's incredible. I really think that if you put your garden under 2 feet of mulch, it would revolutionize how you garden, but I won't get into that right now. We use mulch on the farm and in the garden because it does so many things. One, it's going to keep the soil temperature regulated. So the soil isn't going to heat up or dry out as quickly. That is key in a heat wave or in gardening in a hot climate or in the summer in general. The mulch is going to keep the soil temperature down. It's going to hold in moisture. Now, of course, if you did this the day before a heat wave, the benefit would be very little. In general, it's a good idea to put mulch in the garden anywhere where you're not actually growing because it's going to keep the soil temperature down. And also with our seasonal rains in zone 9 and 10, it acts like a big sponge. It's going to hold on to moisture, so there's actually more available moisture in the soil throughout the hot, arid summertime. You'd see I have a massive pile here. And on the farm, we just have piles that come and go. We get piles dropped off, we spread it. Dropped off, we spread it. It also helps to improve your soil health, which is also, conveniently, tip number 3. Plants can thrive when they have really good soil. They are more drought tolerant, they're more resistant to stressors, they can fight off more insects and diseases when they're growing in really healthy, happy soil. By adding compost and adding mulch, you create a biome in which good bacteria can grow, lots of mycelium and fungal mushrooms and things like that can thrive in your soil, which actually holds on to more moisture. And as we know, moisture is key to keeping your plants healthy and alive during an extreme heat wave. Every season when you switch over your plants, incorporate compost. Mix it into your soil, at least the top 2 inches, but if you really want to get crazy, mix it in 6 to 8 inches into your raised beds. Like here, we mix it into these rows. So the farm isn't an easy way to see how good our soil is because the walkways are the worst soil. We don't put compost there because we don't need to. We put it underneath that black plastic. Every season when we pull out these plants, compost goes down. And we're basically just building really good soil that's going to get us through the next heat wave and the next summer. Number 4, for gardening in a heat wave or a hot climate is moisture. I left that at the end. Hey, excuse me, thank you, that's large Marge. Don't worry, she's harmless. She's a sheep. She's a Dulfer sheep. She's our weed whacker and she's so cute. Anyways, I digress. Moisture. Moisture, I left it at number 4 because it's an obvious answer. We obviously need plenty of moisture in the soil so your plants can thrive through a heat wave. Keep in mind, the hotter the temperature, the more evaporation you have from the soil and the more transevaporation you have from the leaves. This is a really big leaf. There's a lot of sun rays that are hitting it. The moisture is going to evaporate from this leaf very quickly, especially if it can't uptake more moisture from the soil down below. The better your soil, the better moisture holding capacity it has. So adding compost, mulching, making sure that you have good fertility, all of those things are really going to help your plant take up moisture as it loses it through the heat wave. I want to show you here that we've focused our amending really on the drip line. We focused where the plant is growing, and you can see the walkways are rather, hot and dry and not great looking. That's the way we're doing it on the farm because I only have so many resources available to me. So the majority of our compost, our fertilizer, and all of our cultivating efforts is really going to focus where we're planting the plants. The walkways, I don't care about as much. All right, so number 5 for tips on growing in a hot climate or during a heat wave is be very judicious in your pruning. Now, when you watch my videos, you know I talk a lot about pruning for airflow, for disease, for pest management. Well, the other side of that is if you prune your plants too much, you're taking away canopy. And actually, if you know anything about avocado groves, the more canopy in an avocado grove, the happier it is because it shades the roots. Fascinating. On a tomato plant, for example, I could come in here and prune a lot of this underneath here, and it would make it nice and neat. It would give it more airflow. But if we were in an extreme heat situation like a Santa Ana's, which comes in the fall here in Southern California, I would definitely not want to prune right before Santa Ana because I'm taking away the leaf matter that's going to shade the soil and keep the soil a little bit cooler. And also, I am stressing out the plant right before we have extremely drying hot winds that is going to suck extra moisture out of the plant. So keep that in mind. I say prune, carefully because pruning can be very beneficial. But if you're going to have a heat wave or an extreme weather event, pruning right before is not always a good idea. Okay, so we are right back where we started with our snapdragons because that is what I want to use to talk about number 6. Number 6 is growing drought tolerant or heat tolerant varieties. The reason why I'm doing it here with these snapdragons is that is the number one reason why we planted this particular variety of snapdragon. There's hundreds and hundreds of varieties, but we settled on this one because it's supposed to be one of the more heat tolerant varieties of this beautiful cut flower. Now, not to toot my own horn or anything, but a lot of what we do here at San Diego Seed Company focuses on heat tolerance. We're growing in a very hot area of the United States, and so one of my number one concerns when selecting a variety for our catalog and to offer to our growers and our customers is, can it grow in the heat? So wherever you get your seeds, whether it's from us or somewhere else, make sure that you are selecting varieties that grow really, really well in a hot climate, or have characteristics that can help them at least survive through a heat wave or through, extreme weather events. Growing seasonally appropriate varieties is always number one. And what I mean by that is if you look at the back of our seed packet, it's going to say season, and it'll say cool season or warm season. If you try to grow a plant from the cool season grouping in the warm season, it's never going to thrive no matter how cool we are because the conditions aren't great. So select varieties that do really well and make sure the particular crop that you're growing grows well in the warm season. That in and of itself is going to make you so much more successful and give you a bountiful, beautiful garden with lots of beautiful flowers and veggies to harvest.